Tahu kok, kita mau berbuat baik ni. Ayo, cepat.
Well, the victims of Mount Sinabung's eruption on Saturday were found in the village just within 2 miles from the volcano's crater. Now, hot ash clouds with temperatures of over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit traveled down its slope in just 2 to 3 minutes. Now, many of the victims didn't stand a chance of surviving that. Well, authorities have recovered most of the bodies, but they say there may be more casualties. Mount Sinabung had been quiet for over 400 years until it came back to life in 2010. It started erupting again in September 2013. Over 30,000 people still live in shelters in the area. On Friday, authorities actually allowed thousands of people to go back to their homes that were outside the exclusion zone. Still, authorities say Mount Sinabung remains dangerous. They're stepping up efforts to keep people safely away from the volcano's wrath.
Saya tetap berpatokan kepada pakai jumnya.
Pasang dari sen dari Manado. Cukup.
This eruption of the volcano was so sudden and so swift that many of those who were trying to outrun the hot ash simply couldn't. And as you say, at least 15 people are known to have been killed after this eruption on Saturday. Search and rescue teams are on the ground. There is the grim task of retrieving the bodies, but also looking for potentially more victims, as this is the first time they've really been able to get close to the crater itself. Now, this happened in a village less than 2 miles from the crater. And the devastating part about this is that this is a village that had been evacuated back in September when the eruptions had started in earnest before as well. And it was only 1 day before that these villagers were actually allowed to return back to this area. So just 1 day before this sudden eruption once again. And we are understanding from officials that there were plumes of ash spewing more than a mile into the air. And the ash itself was of scalding temperatures of up to 700 degrees in temperature, and only took about 2 or 3 minutes to reach the bottom of the slope. So just showing how difficult it was for many who were trying to outrun this ash. And of course, those search and rescue teams are still there on the ground, seeing if there have been more casualties. But this does really show that this is a very unpredictable volcano. Officials simply don't know when it will spew ash again. It was dormant for about 400 years, or very little volcanic activity, just starting back in 2010, but of course many of those villagers, tens of thousands, are currently evacuated once again and in temporary housing.
Search and rescue teams are patrolling the 3-mile radius around Mount Sinabung, searching for any survivors or people who might have come back to a dangerous exclusion zone. We're right on the outskirts of it. This whole village completely deserted, a ghost village. It's eerily quiet, and absolutely everywhere there is ash all over everything. Take a look at this. There's a crop of tomatoes here, completely caked in the ash, and everywhere when a breeze blows or there's a gust of wind, it lifts up. I can taste the ash in my mouth. I can feel it all over my skin. This group of houses completely collapsed under the weight of the ash when it fell, and if you take a look at it, it's incredibly thick, really dense on top of this structure. 30,000 people have been forced to flee their homes. It's not known when they'll be able to come back because this volcano is still active. With 129 active volcanoes across Indonesia, the Indonesian people and government have had to learn to cope with and prepare for disasters like this. The National Disaster Mitigation Authority has now added 19 more volcanoes up the threat level from normal to alert. Add that to 3 others last year on high alert, and this, Mount Sinabung, an active volcano on the highest threat level of all, under dangerous. Simon Mawson, CNN, Mount Sinabung, Indonesia.